by Moorthy K. Uppaluri, the CEO of Randstad India and Sri Lanka. Moorthy is a successful business leader of global standing. He is highly respected in the corporate world and has a commendable track history and building organizational capability. Please put your hands together to welcome Moorthy on stage.
Thank you. I don't need it. Thank you. Good morning. I think I'm comfortable here. I don't need to be on the stage. You guys can see me? Yeah, okay. Very good morning and very comprehensive and very informative talk, Shally. It's very nice. And having heard Shally, I don't know how much more of value I could add. Or I don't intend to use the slide deck, though. I don't intend to use the slides. Yeah. Most importantly, first of all, welcome to the RSS Summit. It's fabulous to be here, and this is the first time, I guess, Shally and company are conducting this in India. Right, Shally? Is this the first time in India? First time. Awesome. So I was just sitting in the front row, and I was thinking, how critical the role of a recruiter is. I don't know how many of the CEOs or corporate executives or leaders would recognize. You are essentially, one way to look at it, either as a diamond picker, or as a wine taster, or in other words, the gatekeeper of the culture, the values and everything else that gets in. Often it is probably not as much valued, and it's often seen as get the talent just on time and just be done with it. But getting the talent, and particularly if you look at the Indian economy at large, I'm trying to put things in the context of India from the global perspective, if you will. If you really look at India, most of the economy is driven through service industry, right? And if you look at the service industry, 70 to 80%, if you open the P&L, the financial statement of any service industry, you will notice that 70% of their COGS, cost of goods sold or cost of their revenue or whatever, cost of services, is people cost. 70% of the cost is people cost. So it's almost like you are the COO, the Chief Operations Officer of a manufacturing company, because people are the operational costs and you are getting these people. So leave alone the cost elements. We will come to that in a minute. But we will talk about the criticality of the role in terms of picking this talent that best suits. And if I were to quote some people, and maybe all the three speakers, probably you'll hear even the next speaker, I guess, Dalbir is from Microsoft. I've spent substantial time with Microsoft, so there could be some parallels from when I was working with GE. I used to hear, it almost echoes in my ears if I close my eyes and think about it. Jack Welch or even Jeff would talk about, Jeff Immelt would talk about, it needs to come from the gut, hiring the people. When everything, all else said and done, the final decision you make is, it feels like, yeah, this person, this guy, this girl is the right person from the job. You can't possibly argue. That is the last mile. All else being equal, that's where you make a difference. So it is gut. So the gut should come, that's from the recruiters. You say like, yeah, this person is the right person. Or this person, even by the way, that gut works even if you are a CEO, because you're picking the right person or you're promoting the right person, it needs to come from within. So Jack used to talk about, it needs to come from the gut. I remember his conversation about, anybody from GE here? Yeah, good. I think Jack used to talk about Bill Conity. Bill Conity was his HR head at the time when Jack was running the GE enterprise. And he speaks about, he knows only one person who is better than him in terms of recruitment and sourcing. There's only one person better than Jack, he says. And even that better person is only right half the times. Jack Welch knows only one person who is better or the best. And that guy is only good only half the times, and that is Bill Conity. He says, hiring from the gut is most critical. And particularly when you're going up the ladder and you're hiring senior leaders, it becomes extremely critical. So that gut is what needs to be developed over science. So we'll talk about some core elements today and in India and what is happening and how critical a role you can play and how this role is constantly changing. And they don't teach you in the business schools as to how to do this recruitment and how to pick the culture. What they don't teach you at business schools or at college is what you're trying to do for a living, and which is so vital in the organization. So let's talk about few, and by the way, talk about Steve Ballmer, let's say, the previous CEO of Microsoft. He used to talk about, as Jack talked about gut means it needs to come from the stomach. Steve used to talk about eyes. You remember, Dalbir? He used to say, like, he finds that in the eyes of the people, he says. Steve talks with passion and he says he needs to find that sparkle, that passion to say that I want to join this company and I want to make a difference. So he says, I want to look into the eyes before I really sign on the dotted line of hiring a leader or a person. So it's all about what do you read in the eyes? Does anybody explain it in the books, in the business books? And this is a very successful CEO talking about it. Eyes, or a chairman of a company talking about the gut. And all the rookies will be thinking, oh, where do I look in the gut? Is there an X-ray or an MRI machine or what? So there are different things. So now let's talk about the changing dynamics of India and what is happening. If you talk to an employer would say, what is it that he or she, the CEO, would expect from a recruiter? Somebody would say, like, I want right here, right now. I want the talent very quickly because it means value to the business. All right, that's one. And two, they say this person should be ready to hit the ground running. Right? You guys hear all of these things from your business leaders all the time. Hit the ground running. Okay, so least amount of training, the best guy, round peg in a round hole or a square peg in a square hole. Perfect match and fits the culture. And is ready for 2 jobs down the line. This is like finding the Mr. Right or Miss Right for the guys and girls. So that's what we need to find, and how difficult. And at the end of the day, just like drawing parallels, it's like a marriage. There are some compromises one has to do, and hopefully the compromises are not very critical compromises. That's the match. So understanding those critical compromises is alignment with the business. Understanding what the business needs and where we can compromise or where we can make some leeway and get on. So these are the employer's expectations in a nutshell. Let us leave it at that before we complicate it any further. Then let us look at the employees or the candidates' expectations on the other hand. Supply demand, right? Let's look at the employees' expectations. What does an employee expect today? Cash is king. Instant gratification. If you give somebody, long-term incentives and later on, that's all fine, but instant. What do I get now? Or what do I get even before I get on the job? The sign-on bonuses or something else or something. So basically the money. And I was talking with Shally. I'll talk to you about the Indian nuance about the last-minute declines or dropouts, which is like a big bummer. We all deal with it. No other country, no other recruiter in the world deals with this. This is almost like you catch the fish and you have it and you say like, wow, I got it. Before you know it slips away from your hand and it's gone. You are with empty hands and you need to find again. So all of these challenges and these nuances are only in India. So a recruiter in India is the world's best recruiter. No kidding, honestly. If you can recruit in India, yeah, totally. It's almost like driving on the Indian roads. You drive in India, you should be given a world license, not India license, right? So that's what it is, I think. So finding these employees or the candidates, future prospective employees who say, money is important and I want to get promoted very quickly because the titles are important, right? Because otherwise the pressure from the wife or the father-in-law, mother-in-law is, hey, tarakki nahi kar raha hai. You're not growing, so it is not a good thing. Either you won't get married, nor you won't get good treatment. There's no hot breakfast at home if you're not getting promoted, leave alone the treatment at office. So all of these expectations, how do you match these? And now let me boil down to the recruitment and talk about some of these channels. I want to visualize this as the destination, that is the employee that we are hiring, the employer to employee, the bridge, and the recruiter maneuvering this path. And the channels are the go-to-market channels in my mind's eye. I look at it as whether it is the social, digital, or the viral, word-of-mouth, networking, whatever you call, are all these channels. And the conventional ones, like Shally spoke about, the newspaper ads and what have you, those were yesterday's world. But come to think about it, all the CEOs, most of the CEOs, I'm not that old, even though my head is great, but I would like to believe I'm not old, but all of us, or all of you, work for CEOs who are trained 2 decades ago, if not 3. So their thinking, their conventional modus operandi is different from what is expected from the employees or the audience you are trying to engage today, right? The employees' engagement models are different, but their thinking, their training, or their learnings are different. And some of you, and that's why it takes a person to understand the person you are recruiting. So you need to have the like mindset. If you need to go find the right kind of fish, you need to go where they are. Because I remember my experience, a small confession if I can make. When I graduated in US, I went to a school in Chicago, in Illinois, and like everybody else, probably at the time, I don't know if that psychology is like that today, I believe it is, everybody wanted a job in California, because California is the sunny state and you want to be living there because its life is good, because that's all you'll see in the movies. Pretty woman, Richard Gere is driving the cars in California, everything, life is only California, nothing else in anywhere else. Of course, not Seattle, it is rainy, but money is good maybe, but you look at California as your destination. So being a mechanical engineer in India, and having gotten the management degree, I applied for jobs in California. Are there any manufacturing jobs in California at the time? Not many. Detroit, Michigan, or these are the places you go for. But wrong destination, wrong thinking, and keep applying 500 applications, not to get even one interview call. And by the way, that is happening even still today. Think about LinkedIn's, Facebook's, Twitter's, no matter where you go, every candidate today wants to window dress their resume. So the job of a recruiter becomes that much more difficult, because if you are used to these conversion ratios, as we call in the industry, from the number of CVs to the interviews to the offers to declines and what have you, this funnel has become broader and bigger, because you're dealing with a lot of, pardon my French, clutter, because you don't know who is the right candidate. You need to go through all of this. So this is one classic case. I'll tell you, normally in every other domain or in every other area of life, you find technology is easing and making it easy for us. But here in this arena of a recruiter's in a daily routine, technology actually complicated our life, because you do a search, you find 10,000 resumes instead of 10. All the 10,000, because everybody has window dressed themselves. Now you need to cull through this and to pick the 10 or to pick the one that is the right one for you. So the job is becoming that much more difficult. So we at Randstad, we believe in something. The watch is going so fast. Do I have so little time, or have already taken time? I have 4 minutes. So we at Randstad keep thinking about something which is very good. This is not a plug for the company, but I'm just talking about how critical this small acronym is. We talk about job, boss, and company fit. Because most often, the recruitment in the erstwhile world, we used to do or stop recruitment with qualifications-based recruitment. You look at, it's almost like how the marriages used to happen. If you look at the matrimonials 10, 15, 20 years ago, you find, wanted a blah girl or a guy, height, and educational qualifications, maybe some compensation information, that's all, 3 lines. And you need a guy or a girl. This is the life partner for life. 3 lines, and you interview, and you do this. 3 lines, and that is qualifications-based, I call it. And today, it is like competency-based. You need to talk to the person 1 time, twice, meet with, possibly a live-in, maybe not. So the trend has changed from a life perspective. Similarly, from the recruitment perspective, there is more to be seen than just the qualifications or the resume. So you look at the job fit. That is like, hey, the job requires these competencies, and does this individual have these competencies or capabilities? Number 1. Then you talk about, will this person be able to work with another person? At the end of the day, people work with people. As I always say, whether you are working for a $150 billion company or a 80 or a 20 or a 10 or even a $1 million company or 1 million rupee company, whatever it is, at the end of the day, you're working with a handful of people. The size of the company shrinks very rapidly, immediately after you sign on the offer, to the 5 or 6 people you work every day. When you go home and your life partner asks you, or your mom, dad, or somebody else, how was your day, honey? All that you say is it's a great day if your boss praised you or if your employees are looking up to you, or it's a shitty day based on the experiences you garner with this handful of people. So whether you work for a multi-billion-dollar company or a small startup or your own company, handful. That's the size of a company. That's the size of a company. So whether this individual you're recruiting can work with this boss, the boss dynamics becomes very important. And then the company cultural fit. So we evaluate on these fronts: job, boss, company fit. And by the way, recruiters, if you really were to put your value add to the company, maybe I was just thinking it's a nice white paper we need to probably think of publishing, or one of you guys should think about, the cost to the company, if a recruiter does not do a thorough or a good job, is immense. Because by the way, look at the cost or the value to the society. I'm not trying to glorify your job, but make you sensitive about the importance of the job that all of us have. 1, if it's a wrong recruitment, the guy or gal, the employee, is unhappy, so his family will be impacted. Unhappiness spreads, permeates, and if he or she is unhappy, the productivity is low, so the company will suffer because of the non-value add, and eventually the guy or gal leaves, attrition, and again the cycle starts. So one job not done very well is like, the ramifications are many. So the recruiter's job is absolutely critical in picking the right ones. If you really look at one more element about, are there people beyond recruiters in the room? HR at large? There are some people. Yeah, I see some hands. So if I think in my mind's eye, maybe it's my training or learning from various companies that I've been with and the leaders I've worked with, I look at a 3-pronged approach, but probably which is not too far away from most. HR to be simplified as attract, retain, develop. right? Three things that we all see. So we spoke about attract, how critical it is to attract and attract the right people. And the channels are different today, and the clutter is high. The channels are many, but the effectiveness of the channels is what we are talking about. That's done. Now you think about the retention part. I said a little bit about attrition or the job, boss, company fit. If it is not right, the guy or gal would leave. Am I going too fast? You guys are following me? Yeah. So the attrition part of it and the retention part of it is very clear. The develop part is even more different, and it talks more about the new generation of employees we're dealing with. Most of you probably deal with younger kids or teenage kids at home. Do you? How many? Very few. Gosh, very young people. So probably I need to engage with you first, then telling you about your kids. So the kids today, they do not go to the schools for teaching. The teachers are, if somebody teaches to you, they think teaching is equal to preaching. And they say like, don't preach. Don't tell me. They turn off if it sounds like a teaching or preaching. They want to learn on their own. It's like self-serve. Don't serve it to me. I want to serve it on my own. What do I need? And so this is what manifests in several companies, whether it is GE's or Microsoft's, Google's, or what have you, as 70-20-10, or even within Randstad's. Most of you are familiar. So people would want to learn on their own. There is a greater emphasis of learning. So even the job, as a recruiter, when we find somebody to match and to work in a particular role, you want to look at that possible learning for the individual. If the individual can't learn, if he or she is bored on the day 2, they'll leave. That's also a requirement which is not spelt out initially. And it takes two people, both the manager, the hiring manager, and the recruiter, to make a conscious decision of, hey, this person has this gap, and this is an intended challenge so that the individual can learn and be awake behind the wheel. So that's the 70% part of it. The 20% part of it puts the onus on the managers, the first line of managers, to be the coaches. And these people who have been promoted into these roles have not been trained to be the coaches. So this is a spiel to the HR managers to prepare these coaches, to prepare risk takers in the first part so that people can hire people. And by the way, think about it this way. I used to often talk in my previous work life. If somebody already has earned the stripes to be in the role, why would he be interested in getting that role? He or she wants to get a little bit more than what they deserve. That is the human tendency. So you want to create that stretch, that element of stretch, and grow the people. And particularly in Indian economy, where it's all growth oriented. And if you hire people suitable for the role, who can just hit the ground running and who are good enough for today, you will continue to lose people. You need to hire people who are learning on the role, are just barely good enough. And they will become good enough and they will become great in a role, so they will stick in the role. So that's by design. We need to be thinking about some of those elements and the learning part of it. So my time, the clock stopped. But in a nutshell, I do believe, recruitment the world has changed. And not many people realize it's like a change that has happened around us. So we got to get to grips of it and make a conscientious decision as to what is it that we want to do and what is it that we don't want to do. To Shali's example, where he spoke about, hey, that recruiter is recruiting 300 jobs or you have done only 6 jobs. Obviously, we find these things, and it's the most smartest recruiter or any business leader is the one who knows what his or her strengths are and what are not. So if you try to do what is expected of you, working very hard, that doesn't make you smart. You need to figure out, this is what I can do, this is what I cannot, but this is what I can get it done. That's the mark of success. So these kinds of things are the hallmarks of today's recruiter or today's needs of a recruiting world. We need to look, because everything can be done by everyone, right? So there are a lot of trends, but then I don't want to bore you guys with the commercial trends or what have you, whether it is the recruitment, just like the BPO industry happened to India and has driven the economy through the roof. The RPO is what is going to be touching all of us, recruitment process outsourcing. And by the way, all of you, maybe most of you, would be recruiting people for your company in India, but they'll be working in a different culture globally. So you are not only recruiters for India, that's the driving analogy that I gave you. You're learning to drive in India, but you'll actually be ending up driving somewhere else. So I think all of these things make it essential for us to collaborate, understand, and ride the wave, right? So I think I have taken more than my time allotted. I wish you guys a very great day, a conference, and hope you guys will find it valuable. And each one of you will go back and change things in the way you recruit so that you can add more value to the business and India Inc. and the community at large. Thank you and good luck.